This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm your host, Mac Pritchard. I'm also the founder of Mac's List. It's a job board in the Pacific Northwest that helps you find a fulfilling career. One of the best ways to get good at job hunting is to talk to people who do it well. That's why once a month, I interview a Mac's List reader who found a job they love. Our guest today is Hannah Fattor. She's the development coordinator at Junior Achievement in Portland, Oregon. Hannah Fattor knows what a difference building a portfolio can make in a job search. In a story you can find on the Mac's List website, Hannah explains how she got the experience and the work samples she needed to get the job she loves. Why do you love your job, Hannah?
It's a really kind of detail and story-oriented job, and I really appreciate being able to write grants and kind of write persuasively to convince people and inform them enough so that they feel moved to give to my organization. And I also really like working as part of a small team because it means I get to do kind of a huge range of things in my job. I get called into different projects for different departments kind of all the time, and it's kind of keeps it always interesting.
Now, you had a different career goal when you set out after college. Tell us about that and how you became interested in working in development, especially raising money for nonprofits.
Yeah, I graduated from the University of Puget Sound with a degree in creative writing and a theater minor, and I really wanted to do dramaturgy work, which is researching the background of particular plays so that you can kind of inform how they are produced and give more information and depth to the actor's performance or choices made about the set or the costuming or things like that. I really liked the research aspect of that, and I loved theater, but it was really hard to get a job in that field, and especially on the West Coast, it was extra difficult. And so I was kind of just working in set construction and doing some internships, and I started hearing more and more about grants and the importance of grants in getting funding for arts organizations. And so I started looking into what grant writing entailed, and I thought that it was a really cool opportunity to sell people on why something was important to me and make it important to them as well. And so I started looking into ways that I could get into grant writing, but unfortunately, the best way to get into grant writing is to already have written a bunch of grants. So instead, I started looking for ways to get involved with nonprofits in general, because nonprofit organizations are, for the most part, the ones that need to get grants and have grant writers. And I spent some time working as an admin assistant for an organization called Spoon and got my grant writing experience there, and then was able to transition to Junior Achievement and begin writing grants for them.
Now, when you were at Spoon, Hannah, you were hired as an administrative assistant, but you also had the opportunity to write grants too?
Yes, I think that was a little unusual. I came into the job being very clear about what I was interested in, which I think helped. I kind of in the first interview, I said that I was happy to do admin work and curious about getting experience in that, but that I was also really curious about grant writing. And it took a while, but I was able to move into that. They were very accommodating with my interests on that one. And again, it was another really small team nonprofit. So I worked in a bunch of the different departments doing projects for them.
Do you think the small size of the organization made a difference? Sometimes people sign up to work at an organization and they're told, well, you're supposed to do this. Don't go outside of your box. Do you think there are more opportunities when you work at a smaller outfit?
I definitely think so. I feel like the nonprofit world too, people tend to wear a lot of hats. It's helpful to get a job in nonprofits and small businesses if you're able to do a whole bunch of things. Like I learned about databases there as well. And so I have that skill, and learned about website development a little bit. So I can kind of do a little bit of everything thanks to having that experience on a small team where you don't have a ton of the experience of that on a small team is you'd get to kind of learn a lot from each other.
When you sat down to write that first grant and the ones that followed, where did you turn to for advice? Did you have a mentor? Did you look at books? Did you get involved in professional groups? How did you figure it out?
I actually took a grant writing course previously. I think that was in March of 2015 or so. Um, there was a Grants USA course that did professional development, and I signed up, and it was just a 2-day intensive on how to write grants and where to look for them. And then kind of just a lot of grants will sort of walk you through how to do them. There's a lot of grants from organizations that are kind of teaching grants, like they'll almost teach you how to write them as you're writing a grant. Southeast Uplift does a really great job with this. I've done work with them for other organizations just on a volunteer basis and writing a grant to get funding from Southeast Uplift. They walk you through it. There's usually tutorials or webinars that people will hold or meetings that they walk you through the whole process of what information you need to collect and how you should structure everything and what is the most persuasive way to frame your argument.
One of the things that struck me as I read your article for our website is that you appear to have taken a long view. You knew you wanted to break into development, and you knew it would take time to get the experience and the work samples that you needed to persuade an employer to hire you to do this full time. Is that in fact, the approach you took, Hannah? And how did you arrive at that strategy?
It was actually very difficult. I kind of got out of college and I was fully prepared to just dive into whatever work I thought was really interesting and I was really excited about. But I realized kind of as I kept running into hiring walls that it counts to have experience in the field that you're interested in. And people want to see that you've put in the time and the effort to get good at something before they hire you for it. So just because I fully believed that I could write grants didn't mean that other people would believe that. So I kind of had to sit back and be patient and keep looking for opportunities to build my skills and prove that I could do this kind of work. And then I could find a place that would hire me to do this work.
How did you figure out what mix of work samples and experiences you might need to persuade an employer to hire you full time to do development work?
I think it was a range of grants, and I kind of wanted to prove how committed I was to getting into development, moving from administration to development. I wanted to prove that I was capable of doing it and excited about it. And so I volunteered with some organizations, and I still do, doing grant work for them when they don't really have a lot of funding, and kind of just honing my skills in a setting where I'm not being paid for it. It's not the ideal way to survive, but it was a good way to build experience. And I just had a day job, and then I was volunteering at these other organizations, giving my grant expertise and honing my writing skills with them.
What advice would you have for a listener who wants to create the kind of portfolio that you put together?
I think I would say go looking for organizations that are interesting to you and pretty small and need your help. I've done some volunteer grant writing work for the Southeast Portland Tool Library, which is very small and only open 3 days a week, but has a really good service that they offer to people and has a really good community. So trying to write grants for them is a pretty good selling point, and the community that they have is really great to get to know. And you kind of start just meeting people and getting their experience and their stories and realizing how important that is to grants. So looking around in your community for a need that you can fill, kind of letting people know that you're interested in grant writing and like to learn more about it and do it. And I think people will generally, over time, remember that that's something that you have talked about and then start reaching out to you with opportunities.
Your current job at Junior Achievement, it took you about 8 months to find it. Was it hard to look for work that long?
It was difficult. It's very much kind of a right time, right place, right situation for getting a job is what I felt. The ones that really stick around. I did temp jobs for a while, and while that was super useful to just get experience in various workplaces and get very good at adapting quickly, finding a job that's more permanent and that I want to feel settled in and grow in a particular direction, in this case, more in development and grant writing, finding that perfect job just takes time, and having the patience to wait for the right opportunity and realize what the right workplace is for you and feel like you're really supported in your role. I think that's all really key.
I was impressed in your article for us that you mentioned that you told friends and family about your job search and your goal, what you were looking for. How did you find that helped you, Hannah?
Well, it was super helpful just to get encouragement from people on a basic level. Friends and family were really supportive of my goals and encouraged me to keep applying for these kind of jobs. I would kind of get burned out for a week and then get right back to it. And people saying, "Oh, have you made progress with that?" Or like, "Where are you with grant job searching?" It was really nice to have that. And then on another level, them just kind of keeping their ears out for me and seeing what opportunities are out there and passing them along. There's a really great network community that you're kind of just already a part of with the friends that you have and the family that you have. And I think using that is a good starting point to network in general with other people and professionals that you have in the industry that you choose to go into.
And in addition to letting people know what you were looking for, you also shared your resume and your cover letters with others as you drafted them. What difference did that make, Hannah?
I have some friends who are very good writers and very experienced in editing and cover letter work, and the feedback that they gave me was super helpful. Having an outside perspective just to read how you're selling yourself and encourage you to talk yourself up at some places where you're not really diving into what you really have to offer. That's really helpful and really encouraging. People believing that you can do that work and wanting you to succeed and indicating where you can tell people about all of your accomplishments and successes is really nice to hear.
As you look back at your search, what do you think was your biggest challenge?
I think my biggest challenge was the fact that I was moving into a pretty competitive job description. Grant writing is not everybody's favorite thing to do, but the people who do it are really dedicated to their work and generally stay in that field for a really long time. And so I knew of grant writers and worked with grant writers who had been in the same job with the same company for decades. And so there's not a lot of turnover in that. And I think people think it's risky to hire somebody who's really new to grant writing when they have somebody who they know is experienced in it. But I also definitely believed that I could get into this work and was just kind of committed to doing it.
And how did you overcome that challenge as you addressed that?
Persistence for the most part, and just being very clear with what I was able to do and what I knew that I still had to work on, but how I was going to kind of overcome that lack of experience.
And when you reflect back on your job search, Hannah, what didn't work?
I think what didn't work for me was applying for job descriptions that were pretty general or just kind of adjacent to the work that I wanted to do. So sometimes the way that something was worded, it would sound like it was in fundraising or grant writing, but then it would turn out to be in events. So I feel like I wasted my time and a little bit of some other people's time on interviews where I hadn't realized what the job was just from the way that they described it in the original posting. So I guess, trying to be very specific and look more closely at what job descriptions read and who had written them and how clear they were with what the job was going to entail.
And finally, Hannah, what's your number one job hunting tip?
My number one job hunting tip is to let people know that you are job hunting. Just sharing that out there in the world and having even just a vague idea of some of the things that you would like to do. I think that can really help you focus on what you want to accomplish. And it can also let people know that you're looking and have you in the back of their mind when they hear about opportunities.
Well, Hannah, thank you for sharing your story. To learn more about Hannah Fattor's job search, visit maxlist.org/stories. And check out the MaxList website for dozens of other success stories. On the second Friday of every month, we add a new interview with a MaxList reader who has found a dream job. Go to maxlist.org/stories. And thank you for listening to today's bonus episode of Find Your Dream Job.